The Trump subservient Supreme Court. New reporting exposing how a Trump-appointed justice spearheaded the death of any meaningful ethics reform, as corruption on the high court is poised to take off in Trump's second term. Welcome to the No Spin Zone. Graphs Grievances starts right now. A little over a year ago, in November of 2023, the United States Supreme Court issued its first ever Code of Conduct for the Justices. The move, coming after excellent reporting from ProPublica, revealed that for over 20 years, Justice Clarence Thomas accepted a wide variety of undisclosed gifts, including private travel, trips aboard a superyacht, the payment of a private school tuition, the purchase of a home, and motor coach, all from conservative billionaires. Around the same time, we also learned, thanks to dogged reporting, that two other Republican appointees on the Supreme Court, Justices Samuel Alito and Neil Gorsuch, did not disclose their financial connections to wealthy people with interests before the bench. All of these revelations highlighting the lack of any ethics rules for Supreme Court justices and greatly intensifying pressure for reform. But the Code of Conduct released by the Supreme Court and signed by all 9 justices last year lacked any enforcement mechanism, making it simply a list of suggestions for them to follow. The court, in effect, gaslighting the American people, saying, "You want us to have an ethics code? Okay, here's a code of conduct that we can decide to follow or not." This obnoxious move causing many to question if all 9 justices really agreed with such a lack of accountability. After all, the only currency the court has is trust. If the American people do not believe that their rulings are unbiased and fair, the court has no mechanism to enforce their decisions. Well, now, almost a year later, the New York Times is reporting Justice Gorsuch was especially vocal in opposing any enforcement mechanism beyond voluntary compliance with the code. According to the Times, Gorsuch, who was Donald Trump's first appointee to the High Court, argued that the justices' strength was their independence, and he vowed to have no part in diminishing that. But it wasn't just Gorsuch who was against an enforceable code of conduct. So too were Justices Thomas and Justice Alito. Private exchanges obtained by the Times reveal the Republican appointees arguing to their colleagues that the court's critics were unappeasable and politically motivated, and therefore they were against enforcement. The Chief Justice, John Roberts, apparently didn't need any persuading. Since at least 2011, the Republican appointee and highest-ranking officer of the U.S. federal judiciary has defended the court's lack of ethical standards, saying, in part, quote, "I have complete confidence in the capability of my colleagues to determine when recusal is warranted. They are jurists of exceptional integrity, whose character and fitness have been examined through a rigorous appointment and confirmation process." So apparently, one robust confirmation process and you are all good for life. That's like the equivalent of saying one doctor's visit means you never need a checkup again. So to recap, that is now 4 Republican-appointed justices, Gorsuch, Thomas, Alito, and Roberts, firmly against setting any meaningful ethics rules. As for the other 5 members of the court, Justice Elena Kagan and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson have both publicly pledged to support an enforceable ethics code. Meanwhile, Justice Sonia Sotomayor has apparently agreed to the same privately. So there you have all 3 Democratic appointees on the High Court in favor of accountability, which leaves just 2 other justices, both appointed by Trump, Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Currently, there is no reporting on where they stood with respect to an enforcement mechanism, but they likely weren't too keen on the idea. And we know that because if they were, we would either have an enforceable code of conduct or at least likely know that the majority of the 9 justices supported such accountability. Every other court in our nation has some form of binding ethics code, meaning if a judge violates the code, they can face disciplinary action. It is disgraceful that our Supreme Court, our nation's highest court, is not held to the same standard, especially considering Justice Thomas and Justice Alito keep revealing they are entirely incapable of policing themselves. Perhaps the only good news is that both men are in their mid to late 70s, and there are rumblings that both might choose to resign soon and let our next President Donald Trump replace them. However, considering Trump's standards, it is unlikely that anyone he appoints to the bench will have a particularly strong moral compass. There is no reason why having an enforceable ethics code and high standards for everyone serving in public office has to be a partisan issue. In fact, Democrats and Republicans and independents should all want that. In an alternative universe, Congress would work together in great bipartisan fashion to pass legislation imposing a binding code of ethics on the Supreme Court. But because the Republican Party has allowed themselves to be co-opted by a lawless, aspiring dictator who is firmly against good governance, we, the American people, are stuck with a lawless Supreme Court. Thank you for watching Graf's Grievances. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, share. It really helps me grow this channel. And join me tomorrow for more.